I get it, you two are serious, so let's go for a divorce, shall we? Are you okay with that? Yes, thank you. It's great timing for a divorce. Now I can go on next week's trip without sneaking around. What? A trip? Today's the perfect timing for a trip with both the pregnancy and the divorce confirmed. It's gonna be hard to move around with a big belly, right? That's why we decided to go on a trip before that. I was actually planning to lie to you tonight that I had a business trip next week. I'm in the process of divorcing my husband after uncovering his affair. It's fine. But since I mentioned divorce, it seems like my husband and his mistress think they can say anything in front of me. They started blabbering about the trip and even the lie they were planning to tell just to go on it. Their baffling actions continue even after that. What's this? Having decided to divorce, I left the house and was temporarily living in a hotel. There, an envelope addressed to me arrived. When I opened it, there was a filled-out divorce form. I understand they want a divorce quickly, but to deliver it during a trip? Are my husband and his mistress mocking me? I'm dumbfounded by their actions again, but it's helpful for me to have the divorce papers first. Got it, I'll file for divorce. I'll also move out the stuff tomorrow, so don't worry. I decided to make these two, who take infidelity and divorce lightly, realize the severity of their actions. I'm Jennifer, a 36-year-old pharmacist. At my age, people often assume I've been married for a while and have grown-up kids, like... However, I'm actually a newlywed, not even a year married to my husband Kevin. Everyone called our marriage a miracle, and I agree. The miracle isn't just that I got married at this age, but also that my husband, 10 years younger and handsome, was part of it. I proudly showed his photo when announcing our marriage. Such a young husband and an older lady like me met at work. I'm not particularly outgoing, and there are many women in my workplace. Most of our pharmacy's customers are elderly, so young men seldom visit. So having no romantic encounters, I realized I was over 30. Though I wanted to marry at some point, I became content with being single as work was fulfilling. About 2 years ago, when I was convincing myself of this, an unexpected encounter happened. Excuse me. Please help me. Sure, I'll take your prescription. At the pharmacy where I work, my then 24-year-old husband came in. He was a salesman and had been in a traffic accident while making his rounds. He was visiting the pharmacy to pick up his medication. I went to pick up some patches for his injuries. Handsome men rarely visit, so us ladies secretly got excited. But since my colleagues were married, and young men wouldn't be interested in me, we just admired him from afar. However, all my colleagues were already married, and I didn't think a young man like him would be interested in me. We treated him as eye candy, much like watching a cool idol on TV. So I just handed him the medicine and processed the payment, thinking he was handsome, but nothing more. His visits to the pharmacy for treatment continued, so he kept coming to my workplace. Sorry, can you help me with this? Sure, I'll take your prescription. As usual, my husband and I only had transactional conversations. This was his third visit to the pharmacy for patches. I figured his treatment would be ending soon, so this might be the last time I'd get to enjoy the sight of him. As I went to fetch the patches, carrying the prescription, I noticed a post-it note attached to it. It had a string of letters and numbers, which I initially thought might be some work-related number. However, it's unusual for additional instructions to be written on a post-it. Curious, I peeled off the note and took a closer look. It appeared to be an ID, possibly for a messaging app. Why is there a contact note on the prescription? I wondered, confused. I asked my colleagues, is this a directive from the hospital asking to be contacted? My question seemed to stun the 3 married colleagues present. Worried that I had asked something out of the ordinary, I felt embarrassed until they accused me of bragging. One of them even slammed a piece of paper and a pen on the floor, telling me to write down my contact information. Only then did I realize that the note was my husband's way of giving me his contact details. I wasn't trying to boast, nor was I oblivious or naive. I simply thought it impossible for him to be passing me his contact information. Now, understanding the situation, I hurriedly wrote down my contact details and rushed back to where my husband was waiting. Sorry for the delay. Here's your medication for this time. While I handed over the patches as usual, expecting calmness, my husband as always received them. The only difference this time was that I had slipped a piece of paper with my contact details into the patches I handed him. That night, I debated whether or not to contact my husband. Staring at my smartphone laid on the table, its screen dark. I wanted to contact him, but I think I was desperately trying to find a reason to do it later, as I couldn't muster the courage. Suddenly, my phone lit up and rattled on the table, startling me. It was a message from my husband inviting me out to dinner. Of course, I had no reason to refuse. He continued to ask me out, and we started dating, leading to marriage after 2 years. When we began dating, I once asked why a young man like him had given his contact details to an older woman like me. I thought you were in your 20s until our first dinner date. What did you think when you found out my age? I was surprised you were older than I thought. Is that all? Huh? Yeah, that's it. If I like someone, it's natural to make a move, right? My husband, not understanding the meaning behind my question, answered with a question of his own. It seems age doesn't matter to him in love or marriage. At that moment, I felt embarrassed for being so concerned about my age. However, while my age-related worries were resolved, I had another concern. About the expenses for our wedding and starting our life together. Should I contribute a bit more? I found it hard to say directly, so I hesitated. I earned significantly more than my husband, with considerable savings. This isn't because I'm a pharmacist and he's in sales, but simply due to our age difference. Naturally, I wondered if my husband felt uneasy about earning less than his wife. Moreover, being only 26, he couldn't have saved much yet, so I felt bad about him shouldering the costs for our wedding and new life. Why? Let's split it 50-50. I'm gonna work hard from now on. But like my worries about age, this too was an unnecessary concern. My husband alleviated all my fears, and by the time we married I had no more doubts and could genuinely feel happy. My colleagues and friends envied and congratulated me on my marriage. I thought we would lead a happy married life. But soon the situation began to change. The first 3 months of our marriage were blissfully happy. My husband would rush home from work, we'd go out hand in hand on weekends, and he helped with the household chores. The only thing missing for a perfect life was a child, but given my age, I was a bit worried about that. However, having accepted my age, my husband would probably understand. I decided to put the child issue aside for a while and fully enjoy my current happiness. Yet 3 months into our marriage, our blissful newlywed life began to crumble. Are you coming home late again today? Yeah, it'll be the usual time, I guess. Don't you think you've been coming home too late lately? Sometimes you even miss the last train and have to take a taxi. What? You're complaining even though I'm working hard? No, that's not what I meant. My husband, upset by my words, forcefully closed the front door, making a loud bang intentionally. The vibration and air pressure from the door closing knocked over a picture frame of us on the entry. On the entrance shelf, I gently set the picture frame upright and slowly opened the front door to head to work myself. He's right. It's selfish of me to want him to come home early when he's working hard. But I don't want to be selfish. I just feel anxious because his attitude has changed too much recently. Hey, isn't today the day for burning trash, and isn't it your turn to take it out? Oh my bad. I'll make sure to do it next time. You said that last time and still forgot, right? It's not a big deal to leave the trash in the house for 2 or 3 days, is it? Of course it's not okay. Leaving burning trash for 3 days is unthinkable. Stop nagging. If you have a problem, why don't you do it all yourself? When I addressed this to my husband, who was lounging on the sofa playing with his smartphone, he made an annoyed face and escaped to the bedroom. Before marriage, we decided to share household chores. I know he's not good at housework. But he said even if it's tough, we need to cooperate if we get married. And he set various rules himself. Those rules collapsed 3 months after marriage, and little by little my role increased. It looks like today I'll be taking out the trash all by myself. I was originally planning to mainly do the housework, so that's not much of a problem. The problem is that my husband has changed. He used to be so kind before we got married, so why did he change so suddenly? I didn't want to think about the words that were about to pop into my head, so I desperately tried to shake them off. 3 months later, My husband changed more and more, and the situation escalated to more than just needing attention. Kevin, did you use our money again without asking? I just withdrew my share of the salary. I think we need to save for the future, so spending $2,000 or $4,000 a month is questionable. You earn a high salary, and we don't even have kids, so we could live without my salary, couldn't we? He again lay on the sofa fiddling with his smartphone. He no longer looks at me when talking at home. It seems like his smartphone has become his constant companion. Stop looking at your phone all the time, and look at me when you're talking. Stop nagging me. Don't talk like my mother. My husband, without taking his eyes off his smartphone screen, walked past me and went into the bedroom. I'm at my wit's end with my husband, who has even stopped contributing financially to the household. Naturally, he continues to come home late every day, and on weekends he goes out alone, no longer spending time with me. Could it be that he's bothered by the fact that I earn a higher salary? And is he frustrated because we're struggling to have children? I reflected on whether I should have been more considerate towards my husband instead of taking his words for granted. But this reflection soon proved to be unnecessary. A few days later, I was at a cafe, invited by a friend. It was a beautiful day, with a clear view into the distance. As I gazed out the window, I witnessed my husband walking into an obstetrics and gynecology clinic, hand in hand with an unfamiliar young woman, who looked to be in her early 20s. I gripped my coffee cup so tightly, shocked by the scene, that I thought it might break. This wasn't a coincidence. The friend who invited me to the cafe was a nurse at that clinic. She knew my husband's face and name, as I had shown her his picture. She contacted me because she saw my husband entering the clinic with an unknown woman. Of course, she couldn't disclose patient information even to family. So she called me to a cafe with a view of the clinic, suggesting I casually look out the window. I had a hunch about what she meant, so I kept my eyes on the view outside. It was just a coincidence that my husband and the woman happened to arrive there. I wanted to confront them at the clinic, but causing a scene there would be inappropriate. There was also a chance that my husband was simply accompanying a female acquaintance for some reason. So I decided to wait outside the clinic for them to emerge. After my friend left, I waited alone for about an hour in front of the clinic. Was my husband really having an affair? Could his affair partner be pregnant? Or was he just accompanying a friend for her appointment? The hour felt incredibly long, as various thoughts raced through my mind. When my husband and the woman finally appeared, I hurriedly confronted them. Could you please explain why you were at the obstetrics and gynecology clinic? You? Why are you here? My husband, who usually doesn't look at me and focuses on his smartphone, now had his eyes wide open, staring at me. But I turned my gaze to the woman, who looked extremely uncomfortable. Though it wasn't confirmed yet, I braced myself for the possibility of my husband's infidelity. Can't talk here, let's move over there? I pointed to the cafe where I was just with a friend and moved to the shop with my husband and the woman. Even after entering the shop, I didn't start talking right away. To calm myself down, I ordered the same coffee I had an hour ago. I remained silent until the coffee arrived, so my husband and the woman couldn't talk either, both looking anxious. They must have felt intimidated by my silence. When the coffee arrived at the table, I took a sip and finally opened my mouth. What's the relationship between you two? Since my husband always seemed annoyed by my conversations, I decided to jump right into the conversation. I decided to jump right into the main issue. At 26 and young, my husband could find relationships anywhere, so I wasn't interested in how or where they started their affair. I could tell when they began their relationship from the changes in my husband's behavior. I only needed to hear the outcome. Well, my husband stammered at my question, obviously flustered. At this point it seemed clear. The woman sitting next to my husband was his mistress. And the person on the other side of the smartphone he was always on was her. His late returns, not going out together on weekends, and not contributing money to the house were all because of this affair. In my mind, the affair and my husband's changes were linked one after another. So you've been to the gynecologist? Are you pregnant by any chance? My husband fidgeted, unable to answer. Frustrated with no answers from him, my irritation grew and I drank my coffee faster. Just as I was about to give up and demand a full confession, not my husband, but his mistress spoke up. "You've been caught. No running away now. We have to clear things up. But still, it was nice to meet you. I'm Katie. Kevin and I are dating. The last test wasn't conclusive, but today they told me I'm 6 weeks pregnant." Stunned by the mistress suddenly revealing the truth, my hand stopped midway as I was about to drink my coffee. Her eyes were serious. She probably saw me as a wall to overcome or a final boss to defeat for her relationship with my husband. Her seriousness was clear, but to me, it just seemed like a brazen admission. Also, hearing her words, my husband seemed to gain misguided courage and started to open up as well. "We're serious about this. I feel really bad for you, but can you divorce us for our sake?" "Kevin, thanks for being clear. But, it's gonna be tough, right? Divorce, childbirth, starting a new life, there's a lot to deal with. I'll be fine as long as I'm with Kevin." With my husband acting like the tragic heroine, I almost feel like I'm the final boss for them. I know he's head over heels when he falls in love, but in marriage, if you find someone new, there's a proper way to handle it. I glanced out the window at the obstetrics clinic and sighed. It seems age does matter in marriage. This isn't to say age gap marriages are bad. It's just that marrying someone with the emotional maturity of a child requires caution. With the affair and her pregnancy out in the open, I'd rather be the one asking for a divorce. But their attitude like they've done nothing wrong is infuriating. I can't stand the thought of them defeating the final boss and having their happy ending. I need to let them know how serious their actions are. First, I have to tell them I'm open to divorce. "So, I see you're serious. Let's go ahead with the divorce." "Really? Thank you so much." They hugged and celebrated loudly, drawing stares. I wish they would remember this is a cafe. I'm embarrassed. Good timing with the divorce. "Yeah, now we can go on our trip next week without sneaking around." "Trip? What trip?" "It's a perfect time with the pregnancy and divorce confirmed. We thought we should travel before Katie's belly gets too big." I was going to lie to you tonight that I had a business trip next week. I almost dropped my cup, my hand going limp. They think now that I've agreed to divorce, they can say anything in front of me. They blabber on about their trip and lying to me to make it happen. We're getting divorced, right? Aren't there things to discuss? Can't you cancel the trip? That's a bit... Really? You're gonna make us cancel? Let us have this trip. I sighed. The biggest one in my life. They're more concerned about their trip than the divorce. Do you understand why we're divorcing? It's because of you too. Let's just decide quickly then. What do we need to decide? Quickly? Well, it's about dividing assets and your affair's compensation, I guess. The apartment is rented, so one of us has to leave, but I'm not staying. I'll move out. How much is the compensation for the affair? Katie, can you look it up? Told by my husband, his mistress took out her phone and began looking up compensation for affairs. What a casual discussion. However, I decided to watch them with a warm eye, to let them realize that divorce isn't as easy as they think. The internet says it's between $10,000 and $60,000. That much? Can we settle for $10,000? I'm not a legal expert, but that seems too low. We can decide on the compensation after the divorce. First, let's talk about the house and money, since it affects our lives after this. Right? You're moving out of the house, right? Then Katie and I will live there. I'll move out right away then. I'll move my stuff while you two are on your trip. Next is dividing the assets. It's mainly our savings, right? We haven't been married long, so half each sounds fair? Sounds good, let's do that. I internally smiled as my husband said exactly what I wanted him to, without much effort on my part. This is why divorce discussions aren't supposed to be rushed. To formalize our conversation, I borrowed some paper and a pen from the cafe and drafted a simple document. It stated our agreement to divorce, the reason being my infidelity, my husband's affair, and our decision to split our assets caught me off guard. Unaware, my husband signed my handwritten document, not realizing its legal weight. I carefully took it from him without folding it. As I packed my things and prepared to leave, I thanked him for agreeing to the divorce and smiled at him and his mistress before leaving the cafe. The following week, I was still searching for a new place to live and ended up staying in a hotel. Today, my husband and his mistress were away on a trip, giving me the opportunity to clear out our old house with the help of movers tomorrow. While checking my schedule in the hotel, I received a notification about a mail delivery. Curious, I opened the envelope to find a filled-out divorce form. I couldn't help but sigh at their eagerness to finalize the divorce, even during their trip. But I realized it was better for me to have it first. I reassured my husband that I would take care of the divorce and moving out tomorrow. I imagined telling him this to his face when he returned, knowing he would be shocked and call me right away. 2 nights later, as I relaxed in my hotel room, my ex-husband called. "What the hell? Everything's gone from the house," he exclaimed. "Not everything," I replied with a chuckle. "I left your clothes and games on the floor." I could hear his mistress's frantic voice in the background as they searched the house. I had already stored my belongings from our previous house in a storage unit and sold everything that didn't belong to my husband. This included furniture, appliances, and even essential items like shower heads and cooking utensils. The house was now as empty as a vacant property waiting for new occupants. "Why did you do this?" my ex-husband demanded. "You better compensate for this." "Why should I?" I calmly responded. "We split the assets in half after the divorce, and you sent the papers, so it's finalized. I just divided the property fairly." "What do you mean?" he asked, confused. "The furniture and appliances were shared property. We agreed to split them without specific allocation, so I sold everything and converted it to cash." "Wait, $600 and some change?" he exclaimed. "That's all from selling everything in the house?" "Yes, that's right," I confirmed. "Remember, we brought some appliances from our individual homes when we started living together, so most items didn't fetch a high price. Some even cost money to dispose of. Most of the smaller items were unsold. Items were unsellable and had to be thrown away." The sound of coins dropping indicated his shock. Even I felt that the total $1,200 was a bit low. But that's expected when using a recycling shop without much thought. Using online auctions or specialized secondhand shops for furniture and appliances might have fetched a higher price. But my goal wasn't to sell high. I wanted to strip my ex-husband of everything necessary for his life and give him as little money as possible. So I used a recycling shop without much thought. How am I supposed to live in a place like this, empty as if no one's ever moved in? That's not my concern. We agreed to split the assets after divorce. The document you signed says so. Any complaints? He fell silent, unable to retort. Regretting the hasty divorce discussion was pointless now. And the discussion wasn't even finished yet. Save your regrets for after everything is settled. You might have forgotten about the trip and the house, but we haven't settled on the compensation for the divorce. That's right. We haven't decided on the compensation yet. Please make it low. I spent a lot on the wedding and starting our life together. I'm almost broke. I even used my money for the trip. Now I have about $6,000 left. I understand you wanted to impress her, but overspending isn't wise. Unfortunately, I'll be asking for $50,000 in compensation for the affair." "What? 50,000? Our marriage was short, but we're divorcing due to your affair, and she's pregnant. I think it's fair. If you disagree, shall I consult a lawyer?" He fell silent again. Realizing the sudden debt in his now empty house must have been overwhelming. Without furniture or appliances, he can't live properly. However, with no money on hand and being only 26 years old, my ex-husband now faces the challenge of paying a substantial amount in compensation. This situation likely means furnishing his home with new furniture and appliances will be a distant prospect. But as a divorcee, his lifestyle is no longer my concern. I'll contact you later about the compensation. After explaining to my ex-husband why the house was so clean, I hung up the phone. Although I couldn't see his face directly, this should make him realize the gravity of taking affairs and divorce lightly. Later, he agreed to pay a $50,000 compensation for the affair. I consulted a lawyer, who suggested I could have asked for more. However, considering his young age and almost penniless state, $50,000 would be a significant enough impact. My intention wasn't about the money. I decided to settle at that amount. The young couple, my ex-husband and his mistress, should ideally have united to build their lives from scratch. However, it seems things didn't work out between them. The mistress, a part-timer with no savings, and my ex-husband, left with only about $6,000, led a pitiful life after the house was emptied. They used cardboard boxes as tables and cooked with a portable stove, a truly miserable living situation. Reportedly, she left the house within a week. With the breakup, my ex-husband now faces definite child support payments. Despite divorcing me with the intention of marrying his mistress, he somehow ended up alone, with his financial obligations increasing. His downfall didn't stop there. He had posted pictures with his mistress on social media during their trip, announcing his divorce from me and plans to marry her. Naturally, this sparked inquiries at his workplace. If he admitted the breakup, questions about the reason followed. Despite evading details, rumors about the affair, pregnancy, compensation, and child support spread, and the world has its mysterious ways. With a tarnished reputation at work, he couldn't continue his job and resigned. Now, with the need to pay for the affair's compensation, child support, and secure living expenses, he urgently needs to find a new job. Being passionate and straightforward in love is often seen as positive, but considering my ex-husband's actions and current situation, it's a matter for thought. I've learned a lot from this experience. Some people are suited for love while others aren't. I think neither my ex-husband nor I were suited for it. In today's world, there are various forms of happiness beyond love and marriage. For now, I'm content with my work and focus on it daily.